And a good Monday, everyone. Welcome to the show. This is Springfield's Talk 1041, streaming live at KSGF.com. Also on YouTube, you can watch the program. Just search out Springfield's Talk 1041, archived shows there as well. One of the big storylines that it shouldn't be big. But as usual, Democrats don't really have anything to campaign on other than Trump is horrible and awful, and it is the firing of the person that does the numbers on employment, jobs added. The BLS commissioner Erica McIntarfer, I believe is how her name is pronounced, something along those lines. And the suggestion here is that Trump fired her because he didn't like the numbers she put out. He fired her because she apparently is not very good at her job. This is the same person that was responsible for the revision of almost 1 million jobs, you may recall, during the election and after Biden had dropped out, and I think the revision was done after the actual election, where the announcement was made, oh, oopsie daisies, we overcounted by over 800,000 votes, or 800,000 jobs. We're seeing this trend. People on the left, this insistence, this is yet another individual apparently not very good at her job that the left is going crazy over because she no longer has the job that she wasn't very good at. This is like a Stephen Colbert thing where he gets praised. Oh, he's just a wonderful job. Well, what is his job? It's to make money for the network. And that's not happening. Not bringing in the viewers. Well, he has the most of any of the three major networks. Yeah, none of them have good numbers. ABC, CBS, NBC, the late night talk show, this is just the way that it's a combination of reasons. We've talked about this. It's the ever-changing landscape and expectation of the viewer, combined with the fact that the late night talk shows aren't what they were once upon a time. They have become political advocacy platforms, and a lot of people that's not what they want. And because of that, you have a loss of money, which ultimately that is the job of a show. It is to make money. And then they go nuts whenever the people who are failing at the job are held accountable for it. And it's not even for the purposes of accountability in that instance. It's just, you've got to make money. You have a job to do and you're failing to do it. Now you've got the clear failure to consistently provide accurate numbers by the BLS commissioner, and so she loses her job. God forbid. See, this is not the world we're used to, is it? Somebody held accountable? Someone particularly in government? This is not how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to get promoted. The bigger the failure you are, the bigger the promotion and praise that you should be getting, and that's how Washington generally operates, and it's certainly how the left operates. These are people that run around acting as if Kamala Harris was some sort of brilliant campaigner that just sort of got screwed out of being president because of racism and sexism. But, again, here is somebody who's not good at her job, fails at it, and then the left rallies around portraying her as if she is some, amazing individual. Oh, so inspiring. For what? You've got an ex-Obama advisor yesterday saying that President Donald Trump, quote, went beyond anything Richard Nixon ever did after he fired the Bureau of Labor Statistics head over the lackluster jobs report. It wasn't over the lackluster jobs report. It's that she's wrong by wide margins consistently. Like, what must someone do to warrant being fired in the minds of the left, other than using someone's incorrect pronouns? The individuals that the left consistently decide to rally themselves around. People that are in this country illegally, people who beat their wives and girlfriends, people who are involved in human trafficking, people who are just really bad at their jobs. I mean, it's as if they have some sort of complete aversion to people that are actually productive, law-abiding members of society. I mean, can we think of any person in recent history that really truly has been a successful person that the Democrats rally around? It's always somebody that is in the country illegally, or somebody who, decided to get into a physical confrontation with a police officer, or somebody who, again, spousal abuse. They love those people. I'm having a hard time thinking of any just normal, good person that they can rally around and go, oh, yeah, that's a good person. That's somebody that we should stand up and defend. I can't think of any. And now you have the preposterous notion that Trump firing somebody who just frankly is not good at her job is just the single, I mean, we're going to hear it all, dictator. Larry Summers claiming, this is his quote on This Week with George Stephanopoulos. Quote, I'm surprised that other officials have not responded by resigning themselves, as took place when Richard Nixon fired people lawlessly. What an absolute joke these people are. And the constant insistence that merit not play any role, success plays no role in whether people keep their jobs in government. It's just such a crazy notion, getting rid of someone who just doesn't do the job very well. Speaking of, you've got these lawmakers in Texas that are doing what they've done before, the Democrats. They don't like the redistricting because, of course not, Republicans are the ones that are in charge. And so this is the way that it works. Whichever party is in charge gets to make these decisions, or at least pick the people who make the decisions. Different states may do it differently. And they don't like the fact that it is being drawn up in a manner that suggests the Democrats are going to lose some seats, Republicans are going to gain some. So, of course, they've run away. Now, there are some interesting developments here. You have the governor announcing, I think it was yesterday, we'll have read through his declaration, that he has declared, based off of advice from the Attorney General, that he can just remove these lawmakers under the law, the way the law is set up. He can remove them from their positions, that they will be gone. They will no longer be there because they have just decided to up and abandon their duties, and the law lets them do that. Now, the Attorney General has said, well, this is something that's going to be taken up in the courts, but it's going to be interesting to see Abbott take this step. If he does take this step, I'm sure, of course, he'll be called a dictator because this is what the left loves to do. But it's just another example of, I don't know. I've just not seen a political party that is so consistently insistent on doing things that are, just abandoning their duties, abandoning the good people. This is what has become of the Democrat Party. Harry Enton over at CNN has some new polling numbers that he talked about on Friday, and we'll get that audio as well. Just say, they're in the basement. It's just the absolute worst ever. So underwater that no one can think of anyone that they consider to be a leader in the Democrat Party. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk at text line 447-KSGF. We'll get the Latest weather from Sarah Myers.
Sure. The
Sure.
first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 84. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 64. For your Tuesday, sunny skies with a high near 89. And taking a look at Wednesday, it'll be sunny and hot with a high near 93.
President Trump firing the Bureau of Labor Statistics Commissioner Sunday afternoon. On Friday. Scratch that. He went off on this individual. The actual firing took Friday. This was the Biden-appointed commissioner. And this is the statement that Trump made regarding the firing, saying, "I was just informed that our country's jobs numbers are being produced by Biden appointee, Dr. Erica McIntarfer, the Commissioner of Labor Statistics, who faked the job numbers before the election to try to boost Kamala's chances of victory. This is the same Bureau of Labor Statistics that overstated the job growth in March of 2024 by approximately 818,000. Not by 10, not by 4, not by 100, 818,000 jobs. And then again, right before the 2024 presidential election in August and September, by 112,000 jobs. Overestimate. Well, it's Biden years. These were records. No one can be that wrong. We need accurate job numbers. I have directed my team to fire this Biden political appointee immediately. She will be replaced with someone much more competent and qualified. Important numbers like this must be fair and accurate. They can't be manipulated for political purposes." The commissioner said that there were only 73,000 jobs added, but more importantly, that a major mistake was made by them, 258,000 jobs downward in the prior 2 months. Similar things happened in the first part of the year, always to the negative. The economy is booming under Trump despite a Fed that also plays games, this time with interest rates where they lowered them twice and substantially just before the presidential election, I assume in the hopes of getting Kamala elected. How did that work out? Jerome, too late, pal, should be put out to pasture. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Trump said on Truth Social on Friday. Now, the pushback on this, clear, obvious, because of the fact that this came the days after these numbers that weren't as rosy as a lot of people would have hoped. Though part of the reason, even whether you believe the numbers or not, is because of a loss of government jobs and people who were not in this country legally. There was actually a gain, disproportionately high gain of jobs for actual Americans. When you look at the number breakdowns, it's better than it looks. But because Trump fired this individual after what has been described as disappointing job report numbers, they, of course, are trying to portray this as, well, he's unhappy because she told the truth. The challenge that has been put forth by many in the media is, and this was something that happened on Sunday, different surrogates of the Trump White House on these different shows being asked, well, is there any proof that she was faking the numbers, that she was rigging the numbers? That's the context that Trump is putting this in. But to me, that's irrelevant as to whether or not she should have that job. Now, it may be relevant in some other context. If she knowingly was falsifying numbers in order to try to rig an election, are there any sort of legal implications? I don't know the answer to that. But when it comes to whether she should have the job or not, I don't care if she is deliberately fixing the numbers or if she's just bad and incompetent at her job. She should not be in that job. That's step one. Don't care why. Step two can be, okay, figure out why. This is another one of those arenas in which I just can't fathom operating, where I just can't imagine being so bad at a job and then being indignant when I lose the job. I mean, people, it's like there's no pride, there's no dignity. Once upon a time, if someone consistently proved that they were not good at their job, there were some people that would have stepped aside from the job to let somebody else step in and say, you know what, I'm clearly in over my head. I am not good at this. Maybe I was once upon a time. Maybe I thought I would be better at it than I am, but clearly I am not delivering. They are paying me to do something, and I am not capable of doing it. And so pride, dignity is the sort of thing that many people would have, because of that characteristic, would have stepped aside. But you see these people on the left, and it doesn't matter how much they fail. It's like, how dare you not continue to pay me to do a job that I'm not good at? This isn't a failure only under the Trump administration. This is somebody who consistently failed at getting accurate numbers out there during the Biden administration. Now, of course, for Biden, no reason to get rid of her because she was putting out numbers that extremely overinflated how things were going under the Biden years. And this is something we've talked about this for years. And it really became noticeable during the Obama years. In any time these economic numbers would come out, whether it was job numbers or GDP, the numbers would come out and then they would quietly get revised down or into more negative territory during the Obama years. I mean, it was just consistent. Oh, the big announcement. Oh, it's great. It's wonderful. And then whatever period of time later that, you get the revision, and it was always quietly revised, and it wasn't as good as they thought that it was going to be, or that they reported the original numbers. And then Trump came along, and it was the opposite. Always underestimating. Biden came along. Here you've got, in this particular case, the commissioner of the labor statistics overestimating by almost 1 million jobs. Oops. This person should have been gone a long time ago, and the idea that Trump is somehow I mean, it's just the same stuff, and it's just nice. It is nice to see someone in government not able to retain their job when they are incapable or unwilling to do it successfully. Coming up, new number on Friday, Harry Enton over at CNN going over some of the latest numbers from CNN, from Gallup, from Wall Street Journal in terms of the Democrat Party, and it is just from bad to worse. And then on the flip side, you've got Donald Trump and the recognition here that this, again, CNN, that he is the most influential president that we've had in this century, and maybe even beyond that. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. Melanie had the following to say. This is just a few months back, or this actually from, let's see, it's from Nick, not me, Nick. I have my own reviews. This is a different Nick. My wife and I wanted to express our sincere appreciation to Daniel, Hunter, and the team at Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. The team was personal, professional, provided us a wonderful setting for our new greenhouse. The stone retaining wall, outdoor water outlets, 400 foot of underground water lines, site prep, cleanup, or a work of art. And their entire team's workmanship and customer service simply outstanding. Daniel was extremely helpful in seeing the vision and sharing how the stone accent for our Yoder-built greenhouse would become a part of a beautiful complement to our home and landscape. Let Daniel and his team partner with you to help you make your project dreams come true. That's Nick and Melanie. And then they said before and after pictures to come, and there's a whole section also on the website, hunterhardscapes.com, where you can see before and after pictures of many of the jobs. I've been documenting the work that began last week on my project, and I'll get those pictures and videos up once it's all done, so we can all have a nice little neat presentation. HunterHardscapes.com. You can also find them under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. Here's Harry Enton regarding just the effectiveness of Donald Trump as president of the United States. This is on CNN.
The Donald Trump administration is arguably the most influential this century, and probably as well dating back a good portion of the last century as well. Love it, like it, lump it. Trump is remaking in the United States of America. Let's talk about tariffs first, right? There's all this talk that Donald Trump always chickens out when it comes to tariffs. No tacos for Trump. The effective tariff rate, get this, it's 18%, the highest since the FDR administration in the 1930s, up from, get this, just 2% last year. From just 2% last year, we're talking about a level, an effective tariff rate level, get this, 9 times as high this year than last year. but is not just on tariffs, which of course Donald Trump ran on, in which you're seeing a tremendously influential presidency. What about immigration? Of course, Trump ran and has always run on a very hawkish immigration platform. Get this, 2025 net migration in the United States down at least 60% from last year. In fact, we may be heading for the first time in at least 50 years in which we have net negative migration into the United States. And last year, of course, in 2024, the net migration in the U.S. was 2.8 million. This year, we might be talking about negative net migration. My goodness gracious. Now, of course, this is part of a larger story, as I was mentioning. We're talking about immigration, net migration. We're talking about the effective tariff rate. But get this, how is Donald Trump doing it? Well, he is signing a ton of executive orders. Get this, 180, the most in a year since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Oh my goodness, you have to go back to the first half of the 20th century, the last century, and to make a comparison, Joe Biden signed, get this, just 77 during his entire first year. And we're only a little bit in August so far, and Donald Trump making history with 180 executive orders signed so far this year. So that's why I said that in my mind, Donald Trump is the most influential president of this century and probably dating back a good portion of the last century. That is because he is remaking the country in terms of tariffs. He is remaking the country in terms of net migration, and he is remaking the country in terms of how much policy changes he's putting through in executive orders. As I said, it truly is history making. Love it, like it, or lump it.
This is one of the reasons I don't worry when they talk about poll numbers and, well, Trump's a little upside down the economy here, there. And part of that reason is because, particularly when it comes to the economy, these are things that when you make meaningful change, oftentimes it takes a while for it to be noticeable. But he's getting it done. He's getting things done. And so when Democrats will point to, well, when it comes to deporting all the illegals, the American people are opposed to that. Sure, they say, you know what, don't care. Well, when it comes to the economy, he's a little bit underwater. All right, fine. He's making the changes, and we're going to be better for it. And that's what ultimately matters. Fortunately, he doesn't have to worry about another term, though obviously, if you're going to have J.D. Vance running or anyone from the administration or even just a Republican that may not be part of the administration, you want things to be better, so you can say you want more of this, as opposed to trying to do what Kamala Harris had to do and, just live in la-la land and pretend that you had no association whatsoever with that particular administration. But I also believe that the Trump's coattails only are really meaningful if he actually is on the ballot anyhow. So I just. Some people may say, well, it's just rationalizing, and his poll numbers are they're solid. They're very good. They're better than past presidents, including himself during this time of a second term. And I think we've just gotten so accustomed to winning. If there is some sort of number out there that says, he's a little underwater when it comes to the economy, you know what? Okay. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't necessarily the most popular thing. Trump knows what he's doing. As far as the Democrats coming up, also this on Friday, Harry Enton noting that the Democrats are, quote, messier than a hoarder's basement and that the image is absolute garbage.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 84. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 64. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 89. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny and hot with a high near 93.
CNN guru, data guru, which the folks at CNN must just find themselves in great pains every time Harry Enton comes on. And the fact that they keep him on is a little bit surprising because he seems to take as best as possible an unbiased approach to what it is that the American people are thinking and saying about Trump, which is positive, and about Democrats, which is negative. Here he is on Friday talking about some of the numbers regarding the Democrat Party today and the historic levels that are not in the positive.
There is no front runner.
What do you think? Is that because how people view the Democratic Party right now, is that contributing to this?
Yeah, I think that is in large part of what's going on, is one of the reasons why there is no front runner. Nobody wants to put anybody up at the top of their ballot list is because at this particular point, the Democratic brand is in the basement. It is total and complete garbage in the mind of the American public. The Democratic Party's net favorable rating, record lows in all three. Wall Street Journal, 30 points underwater. CNN, 26 points underwater. Gallup, 26 points underwater. And that is being driven in large part by discontent within the Democratic base. The Democratic base wants something different. We'll ultimately end up seeing who they choose. It'll be quite the thing who ultimately gets the rose.
There was a reference on CNN during a panel discussion, and it was just regarding the plight that the Democrats find themselves in. And the repetitive nature of making poor decisions and not understanding where the American people are. And an example of that was highlighted during the discussion, Kamala Harris going on Stephen Colbert's show. A show that is finally being taken off the air because viewership was low to the point that it was hemorrhaging money. So in other words, it's not something that connects with the average American person. And so Kamala Harris essentially, ironically, goes on there to what many people believe was actually launching her presidential campaign by declaring that she wasn't going to run for governor, and she's got this book coming out. And it's arguably a very transparent stage being set of the reluctant candidate, where she will eventually announce, because she's gone around the country and talked to the American people, and it wasn't her plan to run, but because of the things that she's heard from average Americans, she just feels that she has, as an American, no other option, no other choice but to run. And so this is what is believed to be the purpose behind the big unveiling of this new messaging, but she did it on Stephen Colbert. And the point that was made on CNN, I think it was Sonny Hoskins, or it was one of the gals it's the one on The View that is said to be right-leaning, whatever her name is. And she said it's like having, you're announcing that you are running for, or you're starting an exploratory committee to run for president of the United States on the deck of the Titanic as it's sinking. She goes on Colbert's show. Well, why would she do that? Because they just are out of touch. They are so out of touch with the average American, and they continue to gravitate towards these extreme minority positions, not race minority, but in terms of 20% of Americans being on their side and 80% being opposed, and those issues are largely the pronouns and the sex change operations for kids and girls being forced to shower with boys, these absurd positions that they didn't even take until, just a few years ago. It was a deliberate decision. This isn't some long-standing division between Republicans and Democrats. We all kind of used to be on the same page when it came to some of this very common sense stuff. But they, just continue to gravitate and force the American people to focus on these things that they identify themselves with, that the average American does not. And I think that the reason that she goes on, anyone would go on Stephen Colbert, is just this mistaken belief that the average American is really drawn in by someone like Stephen Colbert and sympathizes and relates to this guy who is upset because he's not going to continue to get $20 million a year for running a show into the ground in terms of ratings and revenue. I mean, you want to talk about being so completely out of touch. And as I mentioned earlier, every person, they come to the defense of these people that are out of the mainstream for the average American. And it isn't that the average American hates these particular individuals or categories of people. It's just not a priority for the average American. The average American who gets up, who goes to work, tries to raise their kids, and does everything they can in order to abide by the law, only to watch one political party standing for people who break the law, whether it's violent criminals or people who come into this country illegally. And portraying people who come into this country illegally as it's no big deal because it wasn't a violent crime. Meanwhile, the average American knows that if we commit some sort of crime that's, quote, not a violent crime, we don't have somebody coming to our defense. We're left out to dry. And then, the defense of the white lefty male multimillionaire Stephen Colbert. While there are, I've got audio for later in the program, CEO of a steel company over the weekend talking about how the media is really missing out on what Trump is doing in terms of the massive successes for a lot of these different factories in the United States and the implications of it, and the average $80,000+ a year job that Trump is bringing back into this country because of this stuff. That's what matters to people. Those are the people that are switching and have left the Democrat Party to go to the Republican Party. And so you've got Donald Trump, who drives a garbage truck into a campaign rally while the left continues to rally around, people like Stephen Colbert. I don't know that they'll ever get it. Springfield's Talk 1041, the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Pinnaker Honda. Now, I've been telling you about the incredible summer deals that they have on new vehicles, including 0% financing on the electric Honda Prologue, 0.99% on new 2025 Honda Ridgeline. But also, don't forget, they have a huge selection, quality pre-owned vehicles, over 120 to choose from. Largest selection of certified pre-owned Hondas in the area with over 100 certified used Hondas, 0.99% financing on that. What does it mean to get a certified Honda? They go through a 182-point inspection from Honda, a warranty, 7-year, 100,000-mile powertrain, 2 free oil changes for the first year, and that Pinnaker Honda certification, they cover the cost of that. So it's not something that a lot of times, you'll purchase a pre-owned vehicle, and then afterwards they're like, oh, hey, well, now if you want to certify it, it'll only be $22 extra a month, and it's a great deal because this and that. That's not what happens at Pinnaker Honda. They cover the cost of that for you. So for any and all of those deals plus more, Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn, and also at KSGF.com under Nick's endorsements. I wanted to play audio just because I thought this was funny, and I'm not sure if it got much circulation, and there's a meeting that is going on. I guess it's a cabinet meeting, and I don't know, this may be really old. I just came across it and thought it was really funny. And Trump is talking to reporters, as he always does, and Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, is sitting to his right. And Trump begins talking about this clock that he was over in the State Department, and he saw a clock that he really liked. And he felt that it was such a beautiful clock, but people weren't able to really see it where it was within the State Department because it was in this area that just isn't really seen by that many people. And so this is his explanation of how this whole thing played out. And Marco Rubio is sitting to his right as Trump is talking to reporters and all the others around the table about this clock.
So as president, you have the power. If I go into the State Department or Department of Commerce or Treasury, if I see anything that I like, I'm allowed to take it. So I'm in Marco's up. I see this gorgeous clock, grandfather clock, and there it is. I said, Marco, I had to read the rule and regulation. I said, Marco, I love this clock. Look at it. It's beautiful. He said, what clock? I said, the clock that's in the other room is incredible, and nobody gets to see it there. Marco, I tried to talk him into it first, and it sort of worked, and then I had to use a little more. He said, I'd love to take that clock out and put it in the cabinet room. He said, no, are you serious? I said, Marco, I have the right to do it, Marco. And he said, all right, what the hell? It's his contribution to the cabinet room, but it's, by the way, it's an incredible clock, and it's an important room, so you may see it again. Maybe we'll move it back.
I don't know why I found that story. Had you heard that story before?
No,
or that?
so that happened like 3 weeks ago,
Okay.
and I was trying to find an article attached to it, and every article I found was how Trump stole the grandfather clock.
Of course. Now, of course, you could hear in his explanation, he wasn't talking about the ability to take anything that he wanted for his own personal usage, but he was talking about moving it within the executive branch departments. And of course, that's the way that they're going to portray it. What I think about I watched the video of it, and Marco, he could just see, he knows the story that's coming, and he's laughing about it. I said, I use his first name because Trump used it like 8 times just now, so it's in my head. And you think about how these two just eviscerated one another during that presidential campaign. And this, again, is something that a lot of elected officials do not have the ability to do that Donald Trump does. And it does not matter what sort of mortal enemies, politically speaking, at one point you were with Donald Trump. It doesn't matter the things that you said about him and he said about you. When it really gets down to getting the job done, if you can work together, he absolutely does that. That's how he's got 2 of the most influential people in his administration that are former Democrat nominees for president. I don't. I mean, I think we all know that Tulsi Gabbard, she was a Democrat. RFK Jr., a Democrat, may still be. I forget who changes their affiliation, who doesn't. I mean, obviously, RFK Jr. ended up running as an independent before he would endorse Donald Trump. But I think we just forget how significant that is. We're not talking about establishment people that are bureaucrats, and so every once in a while you'll get I think Obama picked moderate Republican to be transportation secretary his first term, or someone. Oh, and there was all this media coverage about how he was just like Lincoln, bringing in these rivals. Oh, it was just so historic. But Donald Trump took two individuals that, again, arguably two of the most influential individuals that are in government today, and these weren't just former bureaucrats that happen to be Democrats, or but actual political Democrats, one from one of the most historic Democrat dynasties, the Kennedy family in this country, but they both ran for president as Democrat, and he brings them in. Marco Rubio, they ran against each other. And I mean, just Marco Rubio in particular was one that really, I mean, Trump just really would rip him up and down. Little hands Marco, he would call him. And Marco Rubio obviously had a lot of, very unflattering things to say about Trump as they were running against one another. But Trump, while you hear these stories about Kamala Harris being an example, and part of the problem, aside from her incompetency, was that she really had ripped on Biden and referred to Biden as, or accused him of being racist, and this was one of the reasons Joe Biden hated her, and there were a lot of really hurt feelings, and he didn't pick her out of any sort of real enthusiastic respect he had for her, but he painted himself into a corner saying, I'm going to pick a woman of color, and that was pretty much all that was left, after scouring the landscape of competent Democrat elected officials that happened to be women of color. But there never was any sort of respect. There's always this with past elected officials, or in the White House, past presidents, the sort of constant concerns about, well, what they said in the past, and hurt feelings and the inability to work together. And Trump, none of that affects him whatsoever. Absolutely none of it. And an example of it is him, again, in that audio from a few weeks ago, joking about that clock and telling Marco Rubio, I want that in the White House, and getting it in the cabinet room. And just, you'd think that these two guys had been friends forever and a day. And there's so many people that Trump has that relationship with that were enemies at one point. And this is another instance in which people on the left in particular, but not solely on the left, demonstrate that they don't really want the things that they claim they want. And you hear the virtue signaling rhetoric about, we just wish that these elected officials could bury the hatchet and get along and see past politics. And Trump's the one guy that does that, yet they hate him for it. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. some of the headlines, Trump telling that story, to roarish laughter about the beautiful clock that's in that cabinet room and that was in the State Department. He told Marco Rubio, I want that in the White House. And just joking about the whole thing, the whole scenario, and explaining to Marco Rubio that as president, he gets to do that sort of thing. And of course, it's just a funny story. And the media takes it and turns it into Donald Trump seizes clock. Donald Trump steals clock from Marco Rubio. Now, these are people who virtually refused to report on the fact that Hillary Clinton, when she left the State Department, actually stole things for her personal home, had to return them. And that wasn't the first time she did it. When she and Bill Clinton left the White House, they stole furniture from the White House and had to return that. Some of it they returned, some of it they paid for. I don't know that she was, if she paid for any of the stuff that she stole from the State Department or if all of that got returned. But it was legitimate stealing for her own personal home. And the media just acted as if that never happened. Not to mention the announcement of this ballroom, and we'll play audio of Trump explaining that later. He's going to pay for himself. And it's $200 million. Going to pay for it himself. He noted that he may have some other people that do private donations, but not at all on the taxpayer dime. Of course, that didn't stop Chuck Schumer from using his position as a U.S. Senator to lie and claim that Donald Trump was going to be wasting taxpayer dollars on this when he's not. It's the irrelevant media proving once again why it's irrelevant and how. this redistricting plan in Texas that has resulted in Democrats out of Texas doing what they've done before. And if they're going to be on the losing side of something, they run away so that there cannot actually be a vote. There's a certain number of members that must be in attendance for a quorum to exist in order to do a vote. And so they just run away so that no vote can take place. Some people might call this denying the democratic process from playing out, from occurring. What I find humorous is that they've gone to Illinois. If you really want a is this really the state that you want to go to show that this is your allied state for your political beliefs? It reminds me when Terry McAuliffe was running for governor of Virginia, and in the weeks preceding the election warned the voters that if they voted the Republicans in, which Youngkin would win, of course, then Virginia would look like Texas. And I remember thinking, I don't think that that's the selling point you think it is. I think you underestimate how many normal people look at a state like Texas and think, man, that would be much nicer than what we're dealing with now. And of course, the Republicans would sweep those elections. Now, is it specifically because of that? I don't think so, but it further demonstrated the disconnect that the Democrat Party has with what's important to the average American. And to go to Illinois, associate yourself as somebody that is supposed to be a representation of a segment of the Texas population, and you run to Illinois, which is failing across every matrix conceivable. Now, in fairness, finding a state that is solid blue that has a list of successes that state can brag upon is pretty non-existent, but Illinois is just such a crappy state. I mean, I think they ran away to Washington State or Oregon, if I recall, back in 2021 when they did this same thing. And those states, while they're not exactly beacons of success, don't have that same stigma of failure that Illinois has. But whatever, have at it. We're going to connect up with Congressman Burleson, I believe, coming up here in just a couple of moments as we continue rolling forward with the Monday show. Any of it that you missed, Spotify, iTunes, KSGF app, and KSGF.com. It will reside there for your convenience. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 84. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 64. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 89. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny and hot with a high near 93.
Springfield's Talk 1041. Welcome to the show, streaming live, KSGF.com. Congressman Burleson joining us this morning. Appreciate your time. I thought we'd start off, get your thoughts on the firing of this labor gal who has demonstrated for some time, even during the Biden years, that she's not very good at her job. Being off by almost 1 million jobs at some point. And so Trump did what generally isn't done in Washington, and that is get rid of someone who's not good at their job to replace them with someone who is. And, of course, this is making the left just go nuts, claiming he's worse than Nixon.
Yeah.
So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that the data is faulty. I don't think anybody's defending the data, and that the fact that they've had to make all these corrections, like massive corrections. What the left is kind of screaming about is as though they're trying to create this narrative that Trump is going to put people in to manipulate things,
right,
so that it appears, good for him. But But at the end of the day, he's been complaining about these labor reports long before he was president.
Yeah.
He's been complaining about them being inaccurate when he was campaigning. And then the argument that the left says is, this is not the role of this individual. They're really a rubber stamp. They receive all this data from all the statisticians. But the truth is, somebody has to answer to somebody, right? So you're telling me that this person is just a rubber stamp. Then my next question is, why do we even need that person at all? So it's clear that whoever's in that role has not been creating a change in culture or a change in the way in which they collect data and report on the data, calculate it, whatever. They clearly have been accepting mediocrity and bad data for years, and so the question is, why do we even keep having this if the data is not going to be accurate?
Down in Texas, you have Democrats once again fearing that democracy playing out will not work in their favor, and so lawmakers have fled to Illinois in order to try and prevent a quorum so that redistricting cannot move forward. Their claim is that they are redistricting in a way that is going to help Republicans pick up seats. But this happens this isn't anything new. Gavin Newsom out in California is working on doing the redistricting over there that will benefit Democrats, and whether it is deliberately being done or if it's a legitimate draw up that just happens to benefit one party over the other, this is absolutely nothing new. Abbott is indicating he may just remove them from their post, and that is something that he is citing as law that he is able to do. Any insight or thoughts on that situation?
Yeah, I think that we need to keep in mind that the Democrats have messed up our entire districting process for the last few years. I mean, this is the whole impetus for the illegal immigration movement, is to bring all of these people so you can flood districts and pad districts so that you can have more and more Democrats in control. So I don't want to hear it from the party that has really nearly destroyed the country by bringing in all of these people and without vetting them, bringing in criminals, bringing in cartel members, emboldening the cartel just so that they could get more seats in Congress. I don't want to hear it from that party. At the end of the day, elections have consequences. In Texas, the Republicans hold the majority, and those members are they have to live by the law, and they have a constitutional oath. They are supposed to be there for the work, and hopefully they show up.
We're talking with Congressman Burleson. I'm not sure that we have had an opportunity to, well, I think maybe you were out at Scramblers around the time we started learning more. Tulsi Gabbard, I believe, had released some of that previously classified information, and then Kash Patel has done so since also, and it just shows the details of who was involved and on what level with essentially determining that they needed to fake a new intelligence report to falsely claim that the Russians were working with Trump or wanted Trump to win, when in fact that wasn't reality. I think that they are a bit concerned when you have Brennan and Clapper doing op-ed pieces, you have Obama World, his office making statements. Generally, they just ignore these things, but they feel the need to respond. Their responses are not based in reality. Has there been anything solid that you have seen released that you either see as new information or that could be enough proof of what we already suspected that people might be held accountable?
Yeah, I mean, at the end, I think that there's enough evidence that these guys knew through. I mean, the emails that have been released, these new documents are enough evidence that it was clear that they took Hillary's campaign into account and her position and her situation to try to blunt the attacks on her email servers, and then furthermore create this completely false narrative and investigation and go after an innocent person. And so I think that when you look at that, if you wrote this into the House of Cards, it would be a radical story in the House of Cards, right? In a fiction book. But this happened. This really happened in the United States. And we can't accept that. I mean, we cannot let this go without people being punished. We cannot let the intelligence community to continue to get away with lying to the American people, deceiving the American people. At the end of the day, the question at hand is, does this government belong to the people, or do we belong to this government? And that's why I think that the Trump administration, that they should go after these individuals. They should fully investigate them, make them lawyer up, make them defend their position. Donald Trump had to. Republican after Republican had to, because for all these phony allegations. So they need to lawyer up. They abused their position. They were in a nonpartisan position. They're supposed to be handling justice, not political witch hunts. And instead, Comey, his record is that he erased, Hillary's email scandal. He didn't prosecute her when there was plenty of evidence that she violated the law and then tried to cover it up. She should really be in prison. But there's evidence that Comey covered that up. And then for him to turn around, and Clapper and Brennan to turn around and create this entire investigation based on bogus claims is really treason. It is treason. And so they need to go through the justice system. They need to face the justice system that they weren't really willing to give to the American people. And I think that we owe it. And I think Trump owes it to the American people to set this right.
Some of what is being acknowledged, that in and of itself, I think to a level-headed person would recognize something was going way off track here. And I saw a clip of Stephanopoulos interviewing Comey, and I don't know how old it was, but Stephanopoulos was pressing Comey on the fact that Hillary Clinton paid for that dossier. And Stephanopoulos asked Comey, when you told Trump about this dossier, did you tell him that his political opposition paid for it? Which, that's a really great question for Stephanopoulos to ask. And Comey's like, no, I didn't really think it was relevant. And even Stephanopoulos, like, you don't think that he had the right to know that? And I don't care if you are completely uninformed as to what's in these classified documents, what happened, who said what. When you have such a pathetic, it's not even an excuse, but the FBI, the director of the FBI during that period of time claiming that he just didn't really understand why it would be relevant to tell Trump that Hillary Clinton paid for this dossier that they were using in order to go after him. It's laughable.
Yeah. And then you've got the Durham report.
Yeah.
And the fact that he buried all of these all of the real, the smoking guns, if you will, into an appendix that was to be put in a burn pile is also
Why is it
really suspicious.
is there any speculation as to why he did that?
I have no idea. Although, Nick, I'll never. I tell people the more that I'm in Congress, the more that I want people to realize. Never underestimate the laziness or the ineptitude of people in your federal government. That you think that this government has that these people know all, that they have all this power, and they have the drive, and they've got the motivation, they've got the energy and the time to do all these things, and never underestimate that all of that is false. They don't. They are all faking it, and so I think that what I'm saying is it very well could be that Durham just wasn't paying attention.
Final question, and then anything else that you want to touch on. I don't know that we've talked about Mamdani. People will think, what difference does it make? We're talking about mayor of New York, and obviously it's a leftist population there. But this is a guy that is pretty openly anti-Semitic, refuses to condemn the call for global jihad, has promoted plans and ideas that have been done in failed states like government-run grocery stores, wanting to replace police officers with social workers. So if you're being stabbed in your apartment in the middle of the night, you call 911, somebody's going to show up that's not law enforcement in his world. Some of this stuff seems to try to be softened just a bit, but just your thoughts, your implications about the fact that he, in all likelihood, will be the next mayor of New York City.
I think it's really disturbing. It's a really disturbing trend for the Democratic Party. I long for the days the Democratic Party was the party of JFK.
Yeah,
that was, but now they're the party of the transgender movement, sexualizing children, wanting to fight our allies like Israel. I never thought that anti-Semitism would be even possible in today, right? I thought we moved on past that long ago, but apparently it's in vogue within the Democratic Party, and I think it's crazy. I think that they're running a big gamble here, and we're kind of facing a big gamble because, I hope and I pray that most American people see it for what it is and dismiss it, and the party is going to have to course correct and pick new leaders. But what the real fear is that this guy gets a microphone and starts convincing more people to believe what he does. That's the real concern that I have. We don't need any more anti-Semites. We don't need any more communists in the United States.
Yeah, and the way that I believe it'll get there, and I do fear that this is what's going to happen, is a lot of these Democrats that have, during the primary, they were openly opposed to him. Once he gets in there, they will begin to normalize him. And it's already been done to some degree. There was a string of stories done regarding his plan to have government-run grocery stores, and the different stories were, well, this isn't really a new idea. There's one over here and there's one over there. And so what they do is instead of, because, okay, he's in there, he's our guy, we have to make it seem like it's not that bad. Well, the things that you're making seem not that bad are things like anti-Semitism. The way that he is so dismissive about the call for global jihad and that's not really my job to come out against that. And for that to be normalized by the Democrat Party, that's how you get such a radicalized party, and that's what I fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is because you're right. Once he gets a microphone, then people are going to start trying to figure out a way to defend him. Cognitive dissonance is a thing. people, and it's basically this idea that you can't be you've got three legs to your stool. You've got, what you do, your actions that you take, what you believe, and what your position is. And so people will adjust their views if they're in a situation. Democrats who are loyal to the party will adjust their political views in order to balance this. And so that's what's concerning.
Anything
else? That's a more wonky way of saying exactly what you just said.
Anything else before we let you go this morning?
No, it's good to be back in the district. My staff people think that we're on recess. I have yet to play tetherball or kickball, and I'm going to complain at my district staff about that. But they've got me booked. I looked at my schedule. I'm booked nearly every day for the rest of the month. And so, but yeah, it's good to be back, and I'll be seeing a lot of you and a lot of faces in the district, and I'm really going to enjoy it.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because one of the things that we talked about last week was another set of cringe-worthy videos put out by Democrats claiming that they didn't have anything to do because they were back in their home district, and I thought that was just a perfect illustration of their mindset and where they felt their job really was.
Yeah.
And it noted you, and how when people like you are back in the district, that's where you see the actual work being done. That's the meaningful stuff. And for Democrats to go out there and market themselves as because they're in their home district, they have nothing to do, I thought was just a perfect representation of their mindset as to what's important and who's important in their job.
Eric Swalwell video where he's benching.
Yeah.
That bench is the same bench that I bench on in the member weight room, and I can assure you that I can outbench him. Not to brag, but what I thought about doing, I may still do it, is to do a similar video where I just literally sanitize the bench.
He's so gross. He's really gross. Congressman Burleson, it's always a pleasure. It's good to have you back in the district for a significant amount of time.
Back.
All right, take care. Have a good rest of your day. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I don't even know, did he say, how much was he? Did he say how much he was benching?
I don't know.
I know, he challenged like Greg Gutfeld, and then some others challenged him, and I don't know.
It's very cringy.
It is. It's just awful. But, yeah, I mean, that point that I made that day there with Congressman Burleson noting just how it's nonstop, one thing after another. And I really do believe that a lot of these Democrats, they see their work completely in Washington, D.C., and if they're in their home district, they don't have anything to do. And that's what that entire series of videos, it wasn't just Swalwell. There were numerous other Democrats, one, I believe, that wasn't even elected, but running for office. Now, that's your messaging to the people that you want to elect you to office, is that if you are home in their district, in their neighborhoods, you don't have anything to do? Like, meet with them, talk with them, hear their concerns. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. All right, apparently 135 pounds is what Swalwell benched. Is that a lot? I don't know.
I don't
The
think
the
so.
last time I had to bench press anything, I was in high school, and it was the bar. I think I don't. I I hated weights. I just it wasn't anything that I was drawn towards. But we had to. I think we had to take it as a guy. It was like half a semester or something, and I remember that I would just go around and try to entertain people so that I somehow that got me out of actually having to lift weights. So that's what I always did. 135 pounds, I guess that's a lot. I don't know. If you're going to be bragging about it, I assume that that is a lot. Someone said it looked like Swalwell had been bench pressing 135. I guess that's how much a female Chinese spy weighs. Ozarks Elder Law, 5 ways to pay for a nursing home each and every day that you get closer, however, to the time in which you or your loved one needs to be in a nursing home. One of those can fall off to the point that when the day and time comes, if you haven't planned ahead of time, you may have no options or you only have one option, and that one option is not a good option. Waiting until you have to do it or you get very close to where you think, well, we're going to be needing to do this soon with mom or grandma or whomever, you're only doing yourself a disservice, and you could be passing on opportunities to pay for that nursing home in a way that would be much, much easier than what you would otherwise. That's where Ozarks Elder Law comes in. They can lay out for you what it is that are going to be the options, and what are the options now. And you may think, well, I did this already a few years ago when I was living in Oklahoma or Minnesota. Every state's different. And so Kansas, Oklahoma, in fact, what Lori Rook was telling us that one of the things from their Joplin office, they had somebody that they were looking at whether or not to live in Kansas or to live in Missouri. And that was going to make a huge difference as to whether or not they were going to be able to pay for a nursing home that was to their standards. And so this is how they help you out when it comes to the nursing home thing. And there is no cost for a consultation, and you will know up front how much it will cost in order to get things locked in for you so that you are prepared. OzarksElderLaw.com, also KSGF.com under Nick's endorsements.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 84. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 64. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 89. And taking a look at Wednesday, it'll be sunny and hot with a high near 93.
It appears as if the assessment from a lot of listeners is that 135 pounds is not a lot to bench press. Couple of different messages on this. One of them being the NFL bench press refers to the bench press event held at the NFL Scouting Combine, where players lift a 225-pound barbell for repetitions to assess their upper body strength and stamina. I'm not sure, is that the same as bench press? Another's just saying it's pitiful. So apparently...
Well, I looked it up.
Yeah.
According to the National Strength and Conditioning Association, the average bench press for untrained males is around 180.
Oh.
That's just a quick
That's
Google
and
search.
Why would he be bragging about 135?
I don't know.
Or was it 150?
I mean,
Which
Google.
one was it again? 135. Yeah.
Google could be lying, but
Well, it seems pretty consistent that doesn't appear to be. I have no idea.
not remarkable.
No clue. Did you see, is it last week also that Trump reinstituted the presidential fitness
saw
test?
that.
When did that go away?
Obama.
Of course.
Duh.
Yeah, I remember doing that. I did really, really well at it.
Did you?
I did. I did exceptionally well. In fact, if I remember correctly, because it was 8th grade, I believe that's done in 8th grade, there were so many tests that you could do, but then there were some bonus tests or that you could do as well, and I was the only one that did every single thing, including all of the bonuses. And one of the this is so funny, was where you would with one hand hold your like foot and then jump through it with your other one. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, and
I want to see you do it
so
now.
oh, good Lord, a compound fracture.
We'll make this a whole event. We'll get it sponsored.
Yeah, sponsored by emergency room clinic, but that I think that was the one that I was able to do and some others weren't, and that was the only reason because I was scrawny. Yeah, so in gym class, there was like everyone had to wear white shirts and then black shorts. But if you got a perfect score on the physical fitness test, you got to wear like a tiger shirt or something. And I was one of, I think, only 2 that wore it. So I'm awesome, is what I'm saying.
You felt elite, didn't you?
I got to throw back to 8th grade in order to brag about that sort of stuff. Some people are like, when I was in college, nope, I didn't go that. Nope. 8th grade presidential physical fitness test, that was the peak for me in terms of athleticism. There's new video of the beatdown that took place in Cincinnati that apparently you can hear someone yell a racial slur during the brawl. New footage showing the racial slur that was shouted during the brutal beatdown in Cincinnati, Ohio last weekend has emerged. In the video, someone can be heard yelling the N-word as the violence begins to unfold, though it's unclear who exactly said it and to whom it was directed. Attorney Brandon Fox, who represents defendant Jermaine Matthews, told Fox News' CB Cotton that, quote, "It was not a black racist mob attacking people. These were separate fights that were triggered by racial slurs that ultimately poured gasoline on the fire." He also said that his client was not involved in smaller fights, but rather was trying to break them up. Well, of course he was. Matthews only got involved when he was slapped by a, quote, taller white man, according to Fox. Matthews is facing charges of aggravated riot and assault and so forth. Now, I don't know, and I don't know that, whenever there are people of color that are getting into fights, people of color using the N-word is not uncommon. Now, I don't know. I have no clue whether it was a brilliant decision made by a white guy to start yelling the N-word at a crowd of black people, probably not the wisest move if he did, or if it what is oftentimes commonplace, and that is black people calling other black people the N-word. I have no idea. But there was another story last week about, it was a Christian camp. 3 black guys beat up a white kid, or 3 white kids beat up 3 black kids beat up a white kid. They were teenagers, high school, I believe, football players, and just really railed on the guy. Now, when they got caught, they said he used the N-word at us. Am I the only one that doesn't think that makes it okay to physically beat someone because they call you a name? I've noticed, and perhaps you have as well, that this somehow is utilized, particularly by the media and by the people who oftentimes get caught up beating up somebody who is of a different color, that they think because they claim that the person they beat up used a name, called them a name, that somehow gives them the right to do that. I think, should we not reject that? This is sort of the environment that has been created, that, oh, well, he used the N-word, so there you have it, okay? Not to mention, is that not a bit insulting to the black population at large to portray people of color as having so little discipline that they just somehow can't help themselves? If somebody calls them a name, they just go crazy. You know, they don't have the same level of discipline that other people have, and so, you know, they can't help it. Oh, somebody called him the N-word, and so, that means that well, now we understand why this happened. That level of low expectation for people of color and the community of color seems to be just a little bit racist. But who am I to say? I'm just a white guy. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company, I spoke with Josh on Friday, and one thing he mentioned is that if your roof is not properly installed, especially around your ventilation, it can oftentimes lead to blistering on your roof whenever it gets really, really hot. He also said that is one of the most misidentified repairs because many identify it actually as hail damage. Blistering is not typically covered under insurance, and he explained what happens if you file a claim with blistering. Now, with all that being said, that's why it's really important to have an experienced roofing company to know exactly what they are doing, and that's why I recommend the Pyramid Roofing Company. They offer free roof inspections and discounts on new roof installs for our military and our first responders. So, if it is time to have the Pyramid Roofing Company team out to your home, make sure you reach out to Josh today. Now, you can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
I wanted to play a news story. I believe it's from a couple of years ago. It's a local affiliate, not here locally, but elsewhere. And I had this story saved from last week, and I just didn't get around to playing it. But I continue to see these national news stories about this group of folks, the Return to the Land, whatever the organization is called, that just own some land and want to live on it as white people. And this, apparently, because they're white, is something that, I mean, I've heard comments made like, how is that even legal? I'm like, what do you mean, how is that legal? Am I wrong? Like, people aren't allowed to choose with whom they live? When did this happen? Do we have quotas? All right, well, if you're going to buy land, you have to have so many of this, this persuasion and this race and this religion. Like, what country are we in? The virtue signaling that is coming from people, particularly Springfield. I mean, the city of Springfield issuing a statement, there's no room for, oh, stop it. This left-wing just virtue signaling, it gets exhausting at some point. Oh, are you saying they should be? I don't care what they do. I just cannot express enough, as long as they're not bothering anyone. And again, this appears to be exactly what their whole point is, to not bother anyone. We're going to go off on our own. We'll leave you alone. And you would think people who don't like individuals that they perceive as white supremacists would be more than happy with that, because they're getting out of your town. What is the alternative? You want them as your neighbor? You want them as your kid's teacher? Is this what you want? Because that's the alternative. Either they live amongst you, or they go out and they live on their own, isolating themselves from other people who have different perspectives and beliefs. Freedom to assemble. Right? The fact that this is so controversial, and it's based in race. To that point, thought I'd share this news story with you.
A unique approach to bring change after months of nationwide protests surrounding racial injustice. Two women are making a big investment to create economic mobility in the Black community. Natisha Lance shows us how.
Around the country, voices of a growing movement could not be silenced after the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery.
Just kind of sparked something inside of us.
Renee Walters was among the crowd shouting for change. Now she's turning her protest into investment.
We've done the Facebook activism, the protesting, everything. That's not working for us. So it's time for us to action.
She teamed up with her friend Ashley and 17 other families to buy more than 96 acres near Toomsboro, Georgia. That's about 2 hours outside of Atlanta.
This is our answer to breaking generational curses.
Their inspiration was Black Wall Street, a self-sustaining Black community in Tulsa, Oklahoma back in the 1920s. The Friends wanted to create a place to build generational wealth that can be a safe haven for other Black families.
We're planning on recycling our Black dollar between the 19 families that are a part of our organization. That's what really Black Wall Street was about that local economy, that hyper-local economy.
The group of families, now called the Georgia Freedom Initiative, have a lot of ideas for the land that used to be a lumber farm, but they plan to take their time to create the refuge and change they want to see.
We can't wait for anyone to do anything for us, to come save us. It starts with us.
The Brookings Institute reports the wealth of white families is nearly 10 times greater than Black families. The Georgia Freedom Initiative plans to start development in the next 3 to 4 months. They eventually want to change the name of the town to Freedom, Georgia.
Well, now, isn't that nice? Isn't that what you hear? Just the way that this is presented as just this wonderful, inspiring thing. People of a certain race that bought a huge chunk of land for the purpose of allowing only people from their race within that community. Oh, it's wonderful. You know how absurd all of this is? I don't care if they do this. If as Black people, they want to have their own huge parcel of land and build their own community and stay only with other people who are of the same skin color, fine. Knock yourself out. But again, the absolute absurdity of, well, because they're this color, it's a wonderful thing. This is just so inspiring, so fantastic. Oh, over here, Europe, that can't be legal. We got to file a lawsuit to make sure you don't do it. What's the difference? Skin color. And this is what's so hilariously crazy to me about it, is the people who are opposed to it because they think it's okay for one race to do it, not the other, which, Many people would call that racist, but they say the problem they have with the white people doing it is because the white people are racist. What are you? I mean, it's just crazy to me. And I have yet, other than, well, it's just bad, I've yet to have anyone explain in any meaningful or even a non-meaningful way why it is acceptable for that to occur with one group of people, but it is completely unacceptable for another group of people, the only difference being their skin color. Sort of like Jim Crow, the attitude that's being taken. Now, to me, if you want to be opposed, if you think government should choose and dictate to people with whom they can live and associate, okay, but you need to believe that for everyone. Otherwise, you're kind of acting like a racist. And as usual, it's people on the left who have the biggest problem with it. I know I'm just crazy old-fashioned, just think people should be treated the same regardless of their skin color, which in the minds of a leftist makes me a racist. Well, another country nominating President Donald Trump for Nobel Peace Prize, this time Cambodia. This past week, Trump, or it may have been the prior week, secured a peace agreement between Cambodia and Thailand. Bam, one after another. In June, of course, the government of Pakistan formally recommended Trump for a 2026 Nobel Peace Prize because he stepped in to avert potential nuclear war between Pakistan and India. In July, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu nominated Trump for ending the Iranian war. African leaders in July told President Trump that he deserved the Nobel Peace Prize for securing peace between Rwanda and Congo. The presidents of Guinea-Bissau, Gabon, Liberia, Mauritania, and Senegal signaled they too may be considering nominating President Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize because of the peace deals he's worked out between countries in Africa. And now the latest. because of President Trump's call that broke the deadlock in the Thailand-Cambodia border crisis there, averting further potential war and bloodshed. Cambodia has become the latest country to nominate Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. Yes, what a horrible, frighteningly erratic and dangerous president we have here in President Donald Trump. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello and a good Monday, everyone. My name is Nick Reed. I don't know if you saw Emily Johnson had to cancel an open house.
I did see this.
Yeah, because it went under contract.
I guess that's a good reason.
Before the open house ever even occurred. She said today's pool party open house, which I'm not sure. We'll have to ask her what that means. What is it? Could you come swim in the pool? Did she mention this?
I don't
when she
think
was on with us
so.
Friday? She said today's pool party open house canceled. This was a posting yesterday. Because the house is already under contract after 21 hours on the market. My sellers had 2 great offers. I know it seems fast. It is. But it's always good to remember all the work that goes into getting a home ready to be listed. My sellers spent weeks painting and decluttering to get the home ready for professional photography, videography, and drone work. All that work paid off. Yeah, and it's not always fun, but this is part of the genius of Emily Johnson House Theory Realty is she knows what moves homes, and she knows what things may be curb appeal, maybe significant alterations to the home that are needed or not at all. A lot of the things that you may think need to be done in order to get more out of your house or to sell it faster doesn't necessarily need to be done. This is why before you do anything at all, you want to call her, have her come check out your home, and then she'll give you a listing of the things that you should do in order to get the most out of your home as quickly as possible. And then you end up like those folks. You have an open house schedule, but you're already under contract before the open house ever even occurs. Emily Johnson House Theory Realty. There is a video that has gone viral enough that there are a couple of different news stories about it. And it is a guy who was in St. Louis, attending the St. Louis City SC soccer match. Michael Weitzel's his name, season ticket holder for the 5-year-old club. And he's wearing a MAGA hat in the game, while he was there at the game, just sitting there minding his own business. But apparently some lefties got triggered, which you are at a soccer game. So this really doesn't help the overall imagery of soccer, as it already fights a stereotype of not being a real sport when you have fans or a fan that gets so triggered. They demand someone wearing a MAGA hat gets thrown out, and that's exactly what happened. He was approached by security and told he had to leave because of the hat. Red State, one of the outlets that reported on this, noting, as anyone who follows any major league sports can tell you, sports media is left-wing, if not more horribly left-wing as regular media. Most people watch sports to cheer on their favorite team and forget about things like politics for a while, but in recent years it's been a never-ending parade of things such as BLM t-shirts and not taking a stand to keep biological men out of women's sports. Party politics also has seeped into sports media. It's not hard to figure out which side many in professional sports are cheering for. It became clear very recently who Major League Soccer's rooting for. And as a born and bred St. Louisiana, this one is personal. Recently, while attending a St. Louis City soccer SC soccer match, Michael Weitzel, a season ticket holder for the 5-year-old club, was escorted out of the stadium by security for wearing a MAGA hat. Weitzel recorded himself being escorted out of the stadium, and the video has gone viral. It isn't as easy as the video going viral leading up to a big dust-up as Weitzel getting allowed back into the stadium, MAGA hat and all. The official Major League Soccer fan code of conduct handbook states the following conduct is prohibited in the stadium and all parking lots, facilities, and areas controlled by the club or Major League Soccer. Displaying signs, symbols, images, using language or making gestures that are threatening, abusive, or discriminatory, including on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, religion, gender identity, ability, and or sexual orientation, and displaying signs, symbols, or images for commercial purposes or for electioneering, campaigning, or advocating for or against any candidate, political party, legislative issue, or government action. I still think that it is telling that the phrase, the desire, the goal of making America great is clearly something that is on one political side as opposed to the other. The fact that a person simply wants to make the country great again is something that the average Democrat sees clearly as not their side. Now, the part of this that a lot of people are noting is that even in the video in which he's filming himself asking, why is it I'm being removed? And like, well, you can't have things that are political in nature, that are socially political in nature. And he points across the way to all of these pride flags that are being flown. But of course, that's different, see? Because that's the left. And if it's something that the left supports, it's not political, it's just right. It's just correct. In the video, he wasn't, physically problematic. He did challenge them as to what violation and, why is it that people are able to have the politically charged pride flags to fly, but, I'm not allowed to have a hat that says "Make America Great Again." He was told that the pride flags were pre-approved. So it goes even beyond the hypocrisy, the double standard, but they were given pre-approval as if there's some sort of VIP status that applies to people on the left. Oh, don't worry, you'll be good. On the way out, and, the conversation between security and this individual was, I'd say, as cordial as it can possibly be. Now, at one point, he was told if you take the hat off, then you can go back to your seat. And he said, oh, okay. But then somebody else stepped in and said, no, it's too late for that now. And so they kicked him out for the game. But on the way out of the stadium, one of the security guards, you can hear him saying that he's a Trump supporter and he's just enforcing stadium rules. Red State writes, you might venture a guess that the security guard is as annoyed by the fact that he has to do this as Weitzel is as being escorted out. At one point, Weitzel asked if he takes the hat off, can he stay for the remainder of the game? He's abruptly told by someone other than that security guard, quote, nope, it's too late, you're out of here. One of the things that you can hear in the discussion also with the security guard is that, hey, they're discussing the difference between how it is people that are Trump supporters handle situations like this as opposed to people on the left who pitch a fit, get violent, attack police officers, and so forth. And it's really a sad reflection of the double standard that we have in this country today, where, and some of it is self-imposed, and arguably it is the best path forward, that Trump supporters, when they are asked to leave, as in this particular example, even though people on the left are being able to display their political affiliation with flags, it's still peaceful. But the moment that, and you see it whether it's congressional testimony or it is some sort of press conference, oftentimes actual Democrat members of Congress, the way they behave on average when they are asked to leave, they kick, they scream, they squall. They act as if they are the greatest victim of police brutality since Rodney King. And it is a double standard. And the expectation of Trump supporters are cordial, comply when security, law enforcement ask you to leave, even when it's obvious that you are being treated differently and you're being discriminated against. While people on the left think, and we've seen members of Congress essentially argue this, they should be allowed to assault law enforcement. And a couple of members of Congress have done just that, trying to get into ICE facilities. This is, again, another one of these instances where I think most people, reasonable people, Recognize if you're going to have rules that say you cannot have politically charged clothing or flags or displays, fine. But treat everyone equally. Don't give pre-approval permission to people on the left to express their political beliefs while removing people who are Trump supporters from the facility. Weather coming up in just a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 84. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 64. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 89. And taking a look at Wednesday, it'll be sunny and hot with a high near 93.
Well, apparently, Sydney Sweeney has been outed as a registered Republican, which I kind of hate. She's in Florida, and Florida, unlike Missouri, is a state where you register with a political party, and that's done for the purposes of primaries, so that people don't cross over and try to get screwy with the political opponent's primary, and try and this is something Claire McCaskill bragged about doing. when she was running, and she didn't have a primary, or if somebody was running against her, she clearly was going to get it, and so she encouraged her supporters to go out and vote for the Republican she felt would be the weakest, which to me is a pathetic display of recognition that you cannot just win against the best Republican opponent because of your record, and you fully acknowledge that you have to, in order to increase the likelihood of winning, try and rig the opposing party's primary. And some states don't allow that. You register. Now, you can switch your registration, your affiliation, but that is more of a hassle than most people are willing to go through just to screw with the other party's primary, and then would have to switch back when it came to participating in your own primary. But nonetheless, so she evidently is listed as a Republican. I don't like that part of this, because to me, I almost would rather her be not Republican, just for the purposes of showing, look, this isn't a partisan, this should not be partisan. Having an attractive person be in an ad campaign, once upon a time, this is another one of those issues that was never an issue before. Never an issue. Political affiliation did not alter one's recognition of reality, of biology, of what is attractive, what is unattractive, and, of course, the absurd level of claiming that you're a Nazi if you're attracted to an attractive person. And one of the things I think that has been so beneficial in the way this is played out is the fact that she has not come out and said anything. At last I've seen, anyhow. She's just letting this play out. And I don't know if this is a decision of hers, or if it is her family or an agent that is saying, just don't say anything. Because what we have so long been subject to is anytime the very small but very loudly hysterical left has pitched a fit over something that they didn't approve of, you would have the Hollywood star or the celebrity come out and issue a statement about how they have a lot to learn and they didn't mean to upset anyone, and just the standard crap. And it's just this song and dance that is done, and it is this constant bending a knee to reality and sanity for some people on the left that are loud and extreme and insane. And the fact that she has done none of that, I think, is such a fantastic step for just ignoring it. And showing that ignoring it is really the best step forward. What I worry is that now that politics, specifically political party, is being thrown in there, and that it is now, she's been revealed. She's revealed that she's actually a registered Republican, that she might feel compelled to come out and explain, hey, in Florida, you have to be one political party or the other, and when I got registered to vote, my family was Republican, and so I just went ahead and registered as a Republican as well. And I just hope she doesn't feel compelled to explain herself, because this is what has to stop in order to diminish the impact that these insane lunatics have on the left. And it is just the getting to the point where they become background noise, where there is no response, and that makes them irrelevant. Because there's only one reason that these insane lunatics have been relevant, and that has been the response to them. And thus far, when it comes to some of this insanity, Sydney Sweeney's silence on it has been the absolute most powerful pushback against this insanity. And I just hope it stays, and I hope that she doesn't feel, because now she's being accused of being a Republican, like that's a horrible thing, that somehow, makes her feel that she needs to come out and address this. J.D. Vance was on I don't know who these people are, he was on a podcast with 4 or 5 other people, and this whole issue came up, and here's what he had to say.
Yeah, my political advice to the Democrats is continue to tell everybody who thinks Sydney Sweeney is attractive is a Nazi. That appears to be their actual strategy. I mean, it actually reveals something pretty interesting about the Dems, though, which is that you have like a normal all-American beautiful girl doing like a normal jeans ad, right? They're trying to sell jeans to kids in America, and they have managed to so unhinge themselves over this thing. And it's like, you guys, did you learn nothing from the November 2024 election? Like, I actually thought that one of the lessons they might take is we're going to be less crazy. The lesson they have apparently taken is we're going to attack people as Nazis for thinking Sydney Sweeney is beautiful. Great strategy, guys. That's how you're going to win the midterm, especially young American men.
Their course correction lasted about 30 seconds.
That's right. Lasted 30 seconds. Somehow it's gotten even crazier. But again, it's just so much of the Democrats is oriented around hostility to basic American life.
And that is so absolute, on point, and so true. We've got a quick break, also traffic, play some audio. Trump ask what he thinks about the revelation Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican, and he's got sort of a typical, somewhat humorous Trump response, so we'll play that also coming up. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. And all of your home loan refinancing and reverse mortgage needs, one location, convenient for you. I want a great homeloan.com. They also work very closely with Emily Johnson, and I cannot stress to you enough how important and how much easier that can make your life when the person that is handling the selling or buying of a new home is someone who has a great working relationship with the people handling the loan side of it. And that's what you get with the Carrickers and their team, whether that is a refinancing or maybe you're one of these people, which I get it, I understand it. You're holding off because you got that really low interest rate, but you wanting to move, you're needing to move, but you don't want to lose that. And while, yes, you may end up paying a higher interest rate, you aren't locked into that for the rest of your life. You can refinance that. That's part of what they do. So you get the house at probably a lower price than it will be once the interest rates go down. Then you can lower your interest rate when it comes to a refinancing situation, and so you end up in the best position possible. Now, is this going to happen every time? Just talk with the Carrickers, the team, and they will give you the layout of the landscape and what you can expect so you can make the best decision possible. I want a great homeloan.com because you do.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 84. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 64. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 89. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny and hot with a high near 93.
The latest Sydney Sweeney info, aside from the fact that she has been a fantastic marketing person for American Eagle, and the fact that they are not backing down and that she's thus far not addressing the hysterics of the left, that has been a wise move. Now, someone dug in and found out that she was a registered or is a registered Republican. As a voter in Florida, you register with a political party. I hope that doesn't make her feel compelled to come out and address that. Because to make these people irrelevant, we have to make them irrelevant. The only power and sort of significance they have, it has been handed to them by reaction. That is it. It's like a toddler who screams. And when the toddler gets ignored, eventually they learn screaming isn't something that benefits them. But if every single time the toddler screams, then the adult, does anything and everything they can in order to satisfy them, give them candy, give them soda, give them whatever, then that baby learns, this is how I get what I want. And so this step forward, I think, is very encouraging. J.D. Vance, I played audio in the last segment, which he noted, and I think this is spot on, that the Democrats, who at one point seemed as if they were going to try to become normal, have decided instead to take this, tact of calling people who think Sydney Sweeney is attractive, calling them Nazis. And they were all laughing about it because it's just insane. It's crazy. Donald Trump was asked, as I think he was getting ready to, I don't know if it's Air Force One or Marine One, but he was getting ready to board and to fly off to somewhere. But he was asked about Sydney Sweeney and this revelation that she is a registered Republican. As best as you can hear it, a lot of background noise.
That who was? She's a registered Republican? Oh, now I love her ad. Is that right? Is Sydney Sweeney? You'd be surprised at how many people are Republicans. That's what I wouldn't have known, but I'm glad you told me that. If Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican, I think her ad is fantastic. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
All right, so that's Trump's response. I'm still just hoping that she just keeps marching for. On one hand, I hope that she really, like, I know her or something, but she is a person. She's a human being, and she's not somebody that was raised in a Hollywood family. She hilariously did a PowerPoint presentation when I think she was in high school or junior high to her parents to convince them to let her go to Hollywood and try to become an actress. She was, by all accounts, raised by normal people, God forbid, Republicans, apparently, and she has managed to shoot to stardom and not at this point seems to be affected by it. And I just really hope that she sees this as silliness and that she genuinely has no interest in addressing this, because people, what did she do? She is in an ad and she is being called a Nazi. This is how watered down the left has turned the concept of Nazism. On one hand, it's such a horrific thing that they have essentially redefined for so many people what being a Nazi is, to where it has become almost irrelevant. And given the actual horrors, the historic horrors against humanity that Nazism actually was, for them to demean it, to make it so less significant than it actually is by throwing the term around so much, it is a betrayal of history. But on the other hand, it does make them less relevant because it is becoming like so many other terms that the left uses. They use it so loosely and for the most insane thing that it loses its effectiveness in terms of the name calling. But here's a gal who just is in an ad. And she's being accused of being one of the worst people ever in the history of mankind. That's just crazy. hopefully she recognizes it as such, and you just hate to think that this is something that she's, as a human being is really taking to heart. So we'll see. I don't know. It's quite... I mean, to J.D. Vance's point, this is what the Democrat Party has brought to this country. Total and complete insanity. I want to play audio coming up. Donald Trump announcing that there's going to be a ballroom added to the White House. And, of course, the Democrats have begun lying about it. Chuck Schumer, I believe it was in the Senate, falsely claiming that he was going to be using all these tax dollars for this. And I'm sure that was just an assumption being made, because that's what, obviously, past presidents would do. That's what we're here for, as taxpayers, to foot the bill for such things. But that's not Donald Trump. His comments next. I'm Nick Reed. Okay, let's first. I want to play this audio, and this is... So Trump has announced a new ballroom, and Trump's position on what the White House should be like is an interesting one that runs counter to what a lot of people see the White House as supposed to be a representation of. And we're not, a monarchy. We don't have kings, and it's the people's house, and and so it's not supposed to have this level of opulence that one may see in other countries. And Glenn Beck had talked about touring the White House, and Trump pointed out all the gold and all of this, and how Trump sensed that Glenn Beck, for the reasons I just explained, did not really take to it too well. And Trump explained that the point is for other leaders who come to the United States. It is about sending a message to them in a way that they understand. And that's why some of those rooms in particular, in which foreign dignitaries or foreign leaders would be hosted, that it is done more to translate to them that the United States is the best and most powerful country in the world. So it's about positioning. And this is how Trump is successful at getting things done, is he understands other people's perceptions of things, and he plays into those perceptions in order to make great deals. The ballroom is something that the White House does not have, and largely for the same reasons. But he recognizes the sort of messaging that having a ballroom in which you have these big events that world leaders will come, and an opportunity to impress them, that there is benefit to that. There's benefit to sending those signals to people from other countries. And there's truth to that. It's not a way that past presidents have ever viewed it or recognized it. I think they have thought in the past that the lack of that is something that would so impress world leaders that they would see us as somehow being morally superior in a positive way. But Trump understands that's not how that works. That's not what they respect. And he understands and recognizes what it is that impresses and respects people that are from other countries. And so when it comes to hosting events that are, it's going to be catering to those people, that's what it's about. Well, now, some Democrats have, portrayed this as being a waste of taxpayer dollars. Trump, of course, is going to foot the bill for this himself, and he may use some other private donations as well. But the point being, and here he talks a bit about it, and the need for it, some of which, in true Trump fashion, is practicalities. But this is something that he's not going to put on the taxpayer.
Yeah, solved by me. Yeah. It's a private thing. Yeah, I'll do it, and we'll probably have some donors or whatever. But it's about 200 million. So we've been planning it for a long time. They've wanted a ballroom at the White House for more than 150 years, but there's never been a president that was good at ballrooms. I'm really good. In fact, I looked at one that we just built in Turnberry in Scotland, and it's incredible. We're good at building. I'm good at building things, and we'll get it built quickly and on time. It'll be beautiful, top of the line. We've retained the best architects and engineers, everything else. It'll be built over on the east side, and it will be beautiful. It'll be views of the Washington Monument. It won't interfere with the current building. It'll be near it, but not touching it, and pays total respect to the existing building, which I'm the biggest fan of. It's my favorite place. I love it. But they've wanted it, and when they have big events, you entertain the president of China or the president of any place, and you have big crowds. They've always had to get a tent, and you've probably been to some of them, Bobby. When it rains, it's a disaster, and the tent's 100 yards. That's more than a football field away from the main entrance, and people are slopping down to the tent. It's not a pretty sight. The women with their lovely evening gowns, all of their hair all done, and they're a mess by the time they get. And they've always wanted to have it. And I said, in the first term, I said, if I get another shot at this, I'm going to do a ballroom. I was pretty busy in the first because I was running the country, and I was also fighting for survival with all of the lunatics I had to beat. But it worked out, obviously, it worked out very well because here we are. But I always said I was going to do something about the ballroom because they should have one. So we'll be leaving it. It'll be a great legacy project, and I think it'll be special. You saw some renderings of the initial. I think it'll be really beautiful.
Trump, his approach to this is twofold, which I guess it is the way of Trump. And one hand, again, the impression that it will give to foreign leaders, but also just the practicality of it. As a guy who builds buildings, who hosts events, and something that it seems so simple, but at the same time, when it's raining out and you have one of these events and you set up a tent and it's 100 yards away, and particularly, you're slopping through the rain and the mud, and, if it's humid out and women with their hair and these things that I think oftentimes people in charge don't want to say or recognize, but Trump is just straight up forward about it. And look, you're part of it's women with their beautiful dresses and their hair, and it's raining, and it's just it's a mess. And that simplicity, that straightforward look, it just makes sense to do it. I think so often gets overlooked, but Donald Trump, that's how it is that he views so many of these things. Just simple, and gosh, it just makes sense. You ready?
I am.
All right.
Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. It's going to be a really nice week, and especially if you've noticed that your AC is not running up to par, now is the time to address those issues before that hot weather comes back. And that's why I want to tell you about Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. The Foreman team offers residential and commercial services. They do everything from AC tune-ups to service repairs and full unit installs. I recommend that you read their reviews, because one thing you'll see just time and time again is how honest and efficient they are. That's why I've used them since I bought my home. I couldn't be happier with the work that they've done. So if it is time to have the Foreman Mechanical team out to your home, reach out to Russell today for all of your HVAC needs. Now you can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Regarding the story about the season ticket holder for Major League Soccer in St. Louis being removed for wearing a Make America Great Again hat while allowing pride flags to be flown, a text message saying I was at a St. Louis baseball game last Tuesday with two of my older brothers in their 80s. One had a Make America Great Again hat. The other had one Make America John Wayne Great Again. I noticed a few looks, but mostly thumbs up or smiles, but it was baseball, not a soccer match. Another saying, deport soccer, the sport illegally imported. Well, as I mentioned, soccer really does culturally have still somewhat of an uphill battle in the United States, I think for a number of reasons. This sort of thing doesn't really help, I think, the cause. Some people just, they do not see soccer as being as masculine of a sport as football or other hockey, for example. And so when you have what is associated with masculinity and Make America Great Again, somebody wearing a hat removed from a Major League Soccer game, it just doesn't help the overall reputation, I would argue, of soccer. But, whatever. Some of this stuff, you get to the point, and like, all right, whatever. Have you seen this viral story about the octopus?
Mm-mm.
You have not seen this?
No.
All right. So there is, I think this is a San Antonio Aquarium in Texas. And like a lot of different, wonders of wildlife, they have sort of the stingrays and stuff that you can touch and interact with. And they have an octopus that you can interact with at this San Antonio museum or aquarium rather. And there was a 6-year-old boy who, I guess he and his mom or family, that they frequently go there, and that octopus is something that he frequently interacts with, and it'll like suction on but then pull off, because that's what an octopus does. Well, so this time around, for whatever reason recently, it like didn't want to let go, and it sounds like 3 different staff to pull it off. So the mom posts on TikTok, I think it was TikTok, it was one of the social media sites, her a video of her son, and she's talking about the story, and it like has red bruises all up where the octopus attached itself. Now, of course, a lot of the reaction to this is horror, and how could the aquarium even allow an octopus that could do something like this near kids? And you have a lot of people, just demanding that the aquarium reevaluate, because everyone's an expert who sees things on the internet, reevaluate allowing people to interact with the octopus. And here's all I kept thinking as I'm looking at this video and I'm seeing, the mom is posting all the reaction. When I was a kid, that would have been the most awesome thing ever, to go back to school and have all those. I'm serious. You would have been like bragging to your friends, look at this, my arm, it's bruised up, an octopus. It would have been you would have been the most legendary 6-year-old in the neighborhood to have that sort of, like, you got attacked. Not really attacked, but that's a way that you could present it. You got attacked by an octopus. But we've just become so, I don't know, just ninny-ish and reactionary. And it isn't to say that maybe they shouldn't, I don't know, evaluate whether or not they can. This is a one-time thing, apparently. The octopus has not done this before. The mother characterized the octopus as knowing the kid and that they've always been friends, but for some reason this happened. But it's just this reaction that a lot of people have had that is so different. And I know that we're different now and we're more of a nanny state and helicopter parents and everything. But all I kept thinking is if that had happened to me when I was 6 or 7 or 8 years old, I mean, any boy I know would have been going around the neighborhood.
That would have been the two truths and a lie.
That would have
been,
yeah. I mean, it would have been like you would have been king of the hill. You would have been the absolute coolest kid ever to go around showing absolutely, and you'd be disappointed when it started to heal up. And it's just, I don't know, that's all I was thinking about as I saw the reaction to it and how different we are today as a society versus, back in the 80s and well, even prior to that. That's the era that I grew up, the 80s and early 90s. Yeah. And, a lot of times kids will feed off stuff. And so, some of it probably was just the way that parents would have behaved back then. Either thinking it was kind of cool or, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And now, kids feed off the fear of their parents and the outrage of their parents. And I don't know how the whole thing's going to end up playing out, but it just was one of those instances where my first thought was, back in the 80s, that would have made you the absolute coolest kid in the world. And today you're like this victim, and how dare an aquarium even allow this sort of circumstance to play out. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed.